She didn't expect silence. She expected a reaction, a text, a breakdown, a desperate attempt to win her back. But instead, you disappeared. Not in anger, not in pain, but in precision. And now the story is unfinished. She replays it in her mind, not because you begged, but because you didn't. In a world full of men explaining themselves, you became the mystery. The man who didn't need closure because closure was never for him. Let's talk about what happens when your silence says more than her goodbye. Part 1. Feel it once the Stoic way, to break without breaking. There's a moment every man remembers. The air goes still. Her words, whatever they were, I need space. It's not you. Or worse, nothing at all echo like a gunshot in an empty field. And suddenly, the version of you who believed in forever starts to vanish. That's heartbreak, but not the kind you see in movies, the real kind. The kind that leaves you sitting alone, staring into silence, asking yourself, what the hell just happened? But here's what no one tells you. The pain isn't your enemy. It's your mentor. Stoicism never promised a life without pain. What it promised was that pain wouldn't own you, that you could walk through hell and still not catch fire. And this is your moment, not to collapse, but to begin again. The modern man is told to numb it, scroll it away, sleep it away, drink it away, rebound fast, pretend you're over her, pretend she didn't matter. But the Stoic man? He does the opposite. He feels itones. Fully, honestly, brutally. He doesn't flinch when it hurts. He leans in because he knows pain that's faced head on transforms. Pain that's avoided metastasizes. The first night without her, your chest might feel like it's collapsing. You'll replay her laugh, the way she looked at you before her eyes went cold. You'll wonder if it was real. You'll wonder if you were ever enough. And that's okay, because this is your emotional ground zero. You don't run from it. You walk through it with your eyes open. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Translation? It's not her absence that's killing you. It's the illusion you attach to her presence. You thought she was your peace, your future, your anchor. But in truth, she was a chapter, not the whole book. And now it's time to write without her. You feel it once, not forever. Because you're not a man who stays wounded. You're a man who transforms wounds into wisdom. You don't scream it to the world. You don't beg her to come back. You don't tattoo your grief on social media. You sit with it, quietly, like a warrior in a storm. Because your silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. The heartbreak becomes your forge. Your sadness becomes a sharpening stone. And the next version of you, he won't chase. He won't explain. He won't collapse just because someone walked away. He'll rise. So let it hurt. Let it shake you. Let it strip away every illusion you once clung to. But then stand, still, strong, stoic. And when they wonder how you moved on so silently, so completely, they'll never understand. It wasn't silence. It was rebirth. Part 2. Silence over reaction. The power she never saw coming. She expected you to break. Not because you're weak, but because it always worked before. With other men, she could storm out, throw silence like daggers, twist her body away from theirs in bed, and they'd crack. They'd plead, chase, explain. They'd rush to fix the tension, as if discomfort meant danger. But you didn't flinch. You didn't defend or justify. You just sat there still, calm, composed, while the chaos around you screamed for a reaction. And that shook her more than any words could. Because when a woman is used to being the emotional center of gravity, your stillness becomes disorienting. It tells her you are not her puppet, that your peace is self-generated, not handed to you by her affection or withdrawn by her mood. Seneca once said, "No man is free who is a slave to his emotions." But most modern men are exactly that, slaves in suits, well-spoken, high-performing, yet completely reactive inside. They confuse performance with presence and mistake anxiety for depth. You, however, chose a different path. You didn't suppress your emotion, you mastered it. That day she tested you. She wasn't trying to ruin you. She was trying to locate you. She wanted to know, is there a man in there, or just a boy afraid of rejection? And when you didn't bite, didn't chase the bait, she didn't get angrier. She got quieter. Because real stillness is not passive. It is an assertion of power, a quiet message that says, I saw everything, and I won't move unless it's in alignment with who I am. You didn't punish her. You didn't play cold. You didn't retaliate. You just remained undisturbed. And that undisturbed presence, that's rare. In a world where everyone reacts to comments, to texts, to tone of voice, a man who doesn't flinch becomes magnetic. Here's the paradox. The moment you don't need to prove your strength is the moment she finally feels it. She starts wondering, why didn't he argue back? Why didn't he chase me out the door? Why does his silence feel louder than most men's shouting? Because your silence wasn't withdrawal. It was clarity. It was the roar of a man who doesn't need to be heard to be felt. And maybe, just maybe, that night after she left, she sat in her car, hands shaking slightly on the wheel, wondering why your stillness lingered in her chest like a storm she didn't understand. Not because you ignored her, but because you didn't abandon yourself to win her. That's what most men get wrong. They think love is about proving, chasing, convincing. But the Stoic man knows this. True love is not about how much you move for her. It's about how still you stay for yourself. So next time she storms out, goes cold, or tests your center, don't fill the space with words. Let her feel the silence. Because if there's strength in speech, there's divinity in restraint. And when she comes back, and she will, it won't be because you followed. It'll be because your stillness said everything she needed to hear. Without saying a word. Part 3. The shift in her eyes. When control becomes curiosity. There's a moment, subtle, quiet, where something in her eyes changes. She left. You didn't chase. You didn't explain. You didn't try to convince her that you're actually a good man. You just stood there, composed, not cold, not passive, just still. And that's when it happens. Her eyes, once filled with certainty, shift. It's not regret yet. It's not longing. It's curiosity. The kind of curiosity that only arises when the script doesn't go how she expected. Because the modern world has trained her for reactions. She's seen men beg, cry, promise to change, apologize for things they didn't even do just to buy back a few more moments of connection. But you didn't do that. You didn't try to rescue her from the consequences of her own choice. And now, without your emotional performance to validate her power, she starts to feel something unfamiliar, the silence of self-accountability. I remember a story from a man named Cole. His partner walked out after a fight, expected him to follow, to plead, to soften his stance like always. But this time, he didn't. He simply said, "If that's your choice, I respect it. And he turned back to his work. A week later, she texted him, "You didn't even try. Why?" He replied, "Because you already decided. And I don't fight what's not mine to control." That text didn't get a reply. But 3 days later, she showed up not with demands, but with questions. Her control had worn off. Her curiosity had begun. This is what the Stoics understood deeply. You cannot control others, only your response. And the moment you stop justifying, explaining, and performing, you reclaim your dignity. Let her leave. Let her test the waters of her own decision. Don't poison the space she created with your over-explaining. Let her feel the absence of your presence, not your desperation. When you walk away with peace in your chest and strength in your silence, she is left to face something most people run from: the weight of their own choice. And here's what happens next. She doesn't just think about you. She replays the silence, the stillness, the absence of chaos. And slowly, her memory begins to fill in the blanks with meaning she didn't catch in the moment. Was he already done? Did he not care? Or was he just stronger than I realized? And that question is what makes her eyes shift. It reopens the loop that she thought she had closed. Don't chase that shift. Don't try to accelerate it. Your job isn't to make her come back. Your job is to remain immovable in your self-respect. Because when a man walks away without resentment, without drama, without a performance, he becomes unforgettable. Not because of what he said, but because of what he refused to say. That's the kind of silence a woman never forgets. And that's the moment her control becomes curiosity. Part 4. The memory isn't you, it's who she was around you. She says she misses you, but linger in that sentence for a moment, because what she really misses isn't you. It's not your face, not your habits, not even your love. It's who she became when you were near. There's a quiet truth most men never learn until it's too late. When a woman walks away, the ghost she carries isn't yours. It's hers. The version of herself that felt alive, wanted, chosen, safe in your presence. And when you understand this, everything changes. You stop asking, "Does she still think about me?" You start asking, "What part of herself does she crave that only woke up around me?" See, emotional memory isn't a photograph, it's a mirror. She remembers how her laughter felt freer, how her voice softened, how, when you spoke with certainty, she felt her chaos calm. And now that you're gone, that woman is gone too. And that is what she aches for. But here's the mistake men make when they sense her missing them. They return with the same energy that got them left. They try to revive the comfort, not the polarity. They offer affection, not presence. They apologize, over-explain, ask, "Can we fix this?" But she's not missing the relationship. She's mourning the experience. The experience of being a certain version of herself, the one only your masculine stillness allowed. A woman's memory, like a storm, doesn't recall dates or reasons. It remembers atmospheres. And if you were a man who created space instead of noise, who stood firm when she wavered, who saw her without trying to fix her, then she will remember you again and again, not as a man, but as a mirror. So now what? You don't chase that memory. You don't beg to be it again. You become more than it. You level up your energy, your presence, your command of self, so that the next version of you isn't just the man she once loved, but the man she'll never again have access to. That's power, not in resentment, not in proving her wrong, but in knowing that the moment she thinks of you, she's not recalling you, she's reliving her reflection in your calm, masculine frame. And here's the deeper truth. You were not the source of her happiness. You were the stage. She was the one performing in her favorite role, and now the curtain has closed. Let her miss it. Let her ache. But don't step back on stage just because the audience is nostalgic. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And when she imagines you now, she's not mourning facts, she's chasing a feeling. Let her chase. Let her memory do the work. Because your path now isn't backwards. It's upward. And the man you're becoming? He doesn't compete with ghosts. He lets them fade. While he writes a future so grounded, even memory can't catch up. Part 5. The mirror stance. Reflect her. Don't react to her. There's a moment most men never prepare for. It's not the breakup. It's not the silence. It's what happens when she starts reaching out again subtly, quietly, often with mixed signals. A like on an old photo. A vague message that says, "Hope you're doing well," but means, "Are you still there?" A chance encounter where she's dressed like she knew you'd be there. And this is where many men fall. They mistake her curiosity for commitment, her nostalgia for clarity. And in doing so, they react fast. They chase, they explain, they resume the emotional loop that led them to the pain in the first place. But a Stoic man does something different. He becomes a mirror. He doesn't initiate. He doesn't suppress. He observes and reflects. Not with judgment, not with coldness, but with clarity. Because he understands something most men ignore. She's not returning to you. She's returning to a feeling. And often, that feeling has more to do with her than with you. See, the feminine energy seeks emotional resolution, not always reconciliation. When she pokes, it's not necessarily to get you back. It's to see if she still has power, if her absence wounded you, if her ghost still lives rent-free in your mind. You don't have to answer. Your stillness is your answer. Let her see that you're not cold, just clear, that you're not bitter, just boundaried. Because now, you reflect her energy without absorbing it. You let her see her own pattern without feeding it. A man named Kai once shared this with me. His ex messaged him at 1 a.m. Just 4 words. "Do you still care?" He didn't ignore it. He didn't dive into explanation either. He replied, "I care enough to hope you find what you're looking for, but not enough to lose what I've built since you left." She never messaged again. But she never forgot either. Because that wasn't cruelty. That was reflection. Most women have experienced men who chase, plead, or collapse under the pressure of feminine emotion. Few have faced a man who can absorb their storm and still stand rooted. That's what makes him rare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands, unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." You don't need to argue, block, or explain. You only need to reflect her choices, her patterns, her energy. Let her see herself in your stillness. And when she does, she will either grow or she will go. Either way, you remain untouched. Because you weren't playing a game. You were holding your frame. And in a world of men who perform, apologize, and chase, the one who reflects is the one she never forgets. Part 6. Fortress built from fire, turning heartbreak into discipline. He loved her. Not in the way most men love, with performance, with proving, with over-explaining, but with presence, with full attention. with calm faith. And still, she left. She didn't leave because he lacked love. She left because he had not yet built the fortress inside himself, a structure strong enough to hold both his emotion and his mission. And when she walked away, he didn't just lose her. He lost direction. That's the part most men don't speak about: the disorientation, the loss of center, the feeling of wandering in your own life, wondering, what was all of that for? But this is where the Stoic path begins. Because some pain is not here to destroy you, it's here to shape you. A man named Julian told me once, "The breakup didn't kill me, the confusion did." I kept trying to make sense of it, until I finally stopped asking why, and started asking, what now? That question was the doorway. Julian started small. Cold showers. No more late nights. A notebook by his bed with a single line: "Earn your peace." Each day, he wrote how he had honored that line. Some days he failed. Others, he triumphed quietly. But the point wasn't perfection, it was architecture. He wasn't just coping, he was building. In the ruins of his heartbreak, he laid stone after stone of new habits, new boundaries, new integrity. He didn't become heartless, he became fortified. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Heartbreak is not your ending, it's your invitation. But only if you stop performing for her return and start preparing for your return to yourself. Here's the truth you must anchor. The man she left wasn't your final form. He was the soft version, the open version, the version still seeking something external to validate the fire within. But now you have a chance to make that fire your furnace and not your funeral. So instead of asking, will she come back? Does she miss me? Was I not enough? Ask, what am I building now that she's gone? Where does my time go when I'm not checking my phone? What kind of man would I become if I never needed her again? That's the fortress. Not the walls you build to keep love out, but the inner structure that lets you remain unshaken when love leaves. And here's the paradox. The more solid you become, the more women feel it. Not through charm, but through rhythm, through discipline, through the weight of a man who no longer explains his worth but simply lives it. When you walk through heartbreak without resentment and rebuild with purpose, your silence becomes your shield. And eventually, the memory of you will return to her not as a regret, but as a reminder. You were never just a moment. You were the moment she wasn't ready for. Let her carry that. And you carry the tools. Because the next time life tests you, you won't crumble. You'll return to the bricks. You'll return to the fire. And you'll keep building. Part 7. When you don't reach out, she reaches in the power of emotional reversal. There's a law in human psychology we rarely talk about, but you felt it before. The moment you stop chasing someone, they start remembering you. Not because they suddenly realized your worth, but because space reveals what attention once concealed. That's the paradox of emotional reversal. And it's one of the most powerful weapons a man has if he knows how to wield it. See, in the heat of a breakup or a drift, most men do what feels urgent. They text, they explain, they try to fix what's slipping away. Not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned to believe that action equals care, that speaking up equals strength. But what if I told you that sometimes the strongest move is stillness? When you don't reach out, something strange happens in her mind. At first, it feels like victory. Her ego interprets your silence as defeat. He gave up, but then something darker creeps in. Or did he? And that question begins to haunt her. Because when a man doesn't react the way she expected, her narrative breaks. And the silence becomes a mirror, reflecting her choices back at her, not with words, but with absence. This isn't about manipulation, it's about polarity. Every action has an equal psychological counterforce. When you pull, she resists. But when you stop pulling, she begins to feel the weight of your missing energy. And suddenly, the moments she overlooked feel louder. The way you looked at her, the way you listened, the way you didn't beg when she expected you to. And here's where it gets powerful. The less you reach, the more she replays. Not the fights, not the logic, but the feeling of being seen by a man who now no longer needs to look. Emotional reversal works because most women are not used to emotional discipline in men. They're used to being pursued, to holding the power of withdrawal. But when you flip the script, when you disappear not to punish but to heal and evolve, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is intoxicating. It creates narrative tension in her mind that no new guy, no party, no distraction can fully erase. But you must understand, this only works when it's real. If you're pretending to move on, checking her stories, hoping she calls, she'll feel it. The energy betrays you. But if you truly shift your focus inward, forward, your silence becomes sacred, and sacred things cannot be ignored. Don't text just to prove a point. Don't post to trigger a reaction. That's ego. Real power lies in emotional non-reactivity, when you allow her to miss you without reminding her why she should. And here's the beautiful twist. Sometimes she never comes back. But that's not failure, because the goal isn't to pull her in, it's to pull yourself together. And if your absence forces her to grow, even from afar, then you've already changed the dynamic. You've already reclaimed your frame. So if she left, let her walk. But don't follow, don't explain. Let her meet the echo of your presence in the empty hallway of her own decisions. Because when you don't reach out, she reaches in. And sometimes, what she finds waiting there is the man you've already outgrown. Part 8. Exit like a legend and let her fill in the blanks. There are two ways to leave a woman's life. One, loud, messy, full of explanations, closure talks, I deserve better, speeches, and emotional chaos. Two, quiet, certain, untouchable, no explanations, no last texts, no attempts to fix what she let break. The second one haunts her more. See, most men exit in a way that still centers the woman. They try to leave, but also try to be understood. They want her to see their pain, to validate their goodness, to admit she was wrong. And that very need, so common, so deeply humanist, what makes their absence forgettable. Because it wasn't really absence at all. It was just noise in a different form. But when you walk away clean, when you exit like a legend, without anger, without showmanship, you become something else in her mind. Not the ex who begged, not the man who exploded, but the one she can't decode. The one who left questions instead of answers. The one who held the door open with grace, then disappeared before she realized how cold the room became. This isn't about punishment. It's about elevation. You don't exit because you want to hurt her. You exit because you refuse to stay small. Let me tell you about Mateo. He loved hard, gave everything, was patient, grounded, loyal. But when his woman started playing emotional games, testing, pulling away, then crawling back, he didn't engage. He didn't ask why. He didn't seek validation. He just stopped showing up. No long message, no last call, no performance. Just stillness. And then, nothing. 3 months later, she messaged, I still don't get how you just left. That's the power of a clean exit. It writes a riddle in her memory, one she keeps trying to solve, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't need to do. You want to be unforgettable? Don't fill in the blanks for her. Let her wonder if she meant something. Let her ask herself why you didn't chase. Let her imagine 100 versions of your goodbye, because you never gave her one. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, but in heartbreak, the greatest remedy for dignity is distance." A man who walks away with composure doesn't just heal faster, he becomes a myth in her mind. Not because he's hiding, but because he finally remembered who he is. You don't need to ghost. You don't need to be cruel. But you do need to be final. Exit in a way that leaves the room echoing with your restraint, with your clarity, with your refusal to let ego distort your path. Let her feel what silence really sounds like when it comes from strength. Because that's what she'll remember. Not your pain, not your reasons, not even your goodbye. Just the image of you steady, unshaken, gone. And the space you left behind? That becomes the canvas of her regret. Let her fill in the blanks. You already wrote your final line. And legends don't need punctuation. Final reflections and your 7-day disappearance challenge. Most men try to explain. They chase closure. They send long messages hoping to be understood. But the truth is, she doesn't need more words. And neither do you. You don't leave to make her miss you. You leave because there's nothing more to say. And in that silence, you become unforgettable not by begging for space, but by owning it. So for the next 7 days, disappear with purpose. No messages, no performances, no subtle signals. Just stillness, growth, and inner reclamation. Let her feel your absence without explanation while you quietly rebuild the man she never truly met. You don't vanish to be missed. You vanish to remember who you are. And if this message resonated with something in you, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's rebuilding his power. We don't chase closure here. We become it. This is Petals of Stoicism. I'll see you in the next chapter.